Hey everyone, it's Jeff. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today I'm ranking my top 30 NBA centers. As usual, I put my players into tiers. It's pretty straightforward. And by the way, I'm doing my top 25 NBA players overall list after this, so just stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe. Tier number 1 though, I have Dwight Howard, Serge Ibaka, Jakob Poeltl, Andre Drummond, Nerlens Noel, Bobby Portis, and Ivica Zubac. And just some names of interest real quick, so James Wiseman, Daniel Gafford, Isaiah Stewart, Thomas Bryant, Onyeka Okongwu. These are all young players who I don't think are top 30 right now, but if they take that leap next year or continue to improve, they could be. I'm just not putting them here because I don't think they're worthy of it yet. And there's really only one player on this list I want to talk about, and that's Andre Drummond, who, if he did everything he was supposed to do, he would be a top 10 center easily. However, he just doesn't do that, right? You want him to stay disciplined on defense. You want him to set screens, roll to the basket, be a glass cleaner. He could still average a double-double and be an awesome starting center for you. And look, that's not a star player's role, right? That's a role player's role. But Andre Drummond, he's not a star. He puts up good numbers, but he clogs the paint and blocks slashers from getting to the basket, and just overall is kind of a nuisance in that area sometimes. Defensively, when he doesn't get the ball on offense, he doesn't try on defense anymore. He's very inconsistent with his effort on that end. And the thing Andre Drummond doesn't understand is you can get scoring from all 5 positions on the court. However, realistically, you can only really get rim protection and paint protection from the center position, right? So the comparative advantage there is so much better for centers versus other positions. However, Andre Drummond on offense is always trying to play that star player 20 points per game scorer role, when in reality, he's just not that guy. And he should be focusing on just protecting the paint and staying consistent in that role. But he's not doing that, and it makes it hard to win games with him when he's not playing consistently on either end. And yes, he has great numbers, but there's a reason why he was benched for the Lakers during the playoffs, and there's a reason why he's a backup center for Philadelphia now, because he simply can't start on a good NBA team. Moving on though, my next tier. Number 23, Robert Williams. Number 22, Chris Boucher. 21, Wendell Carter. 20, Thaddeus Young. 19, Mason Plumlee. 18, Al Horford. 17, Rashawn Holmes. 16 is Steven Adams. 15 is Brook Lopez, and 14 is Yusuf Nurkic. So the bottom 3 players in this tier, Robert Williams, Chris Boucher, and Wendell Carter, they have a little caret next to their name because that means I can foresee them moving up a lot on this list. Ton of talent. They're probably more talented than most of the people on this list. However, at this point, I would still rather just have the steady, veteran presence of Steven Adams or Brook Lopez because they're consistent in their role. They know what they're doing compared to the upside of having Chris Boucher or Robert Williams, for instance, right? If Robert Williams can stay on the court consistently and not be in foul trouble and make consistent good decisions, he could be close to a top 15 center already. It's just if he gets there, right? And for now, I'm putting him at 23 because I don't think he's there right now, but by the end of next season, he very well could be. Chris Boucher was a great 6th man for the Raptors last year. He has a 3-point shot, good rim protector. It's just, like Robert Williams, can he stay on the court consistently with his size because he is very skinny for his position, but if he can, could be top 15 as well. Wendell Carter has dealt with injuries his entire career. If he can actually stay healthy consistently, could average a double-double and be very solid starting big, like Al Horford, right? Never going to be a star and average 20, but he could be a very solid 15 and 10 guy. However, at this stage, I think all 3 of these players have some issues that we need to see actually get corrected first before they rise on this list, right? Like I said, with Robert Williams, it's foul trouble. With Chris Boucher, it's the lack of size, and sometimes he gets bullied by bigger centers. With Wendell Carter, it's the health, and we just have to see if these players can overcome these things yet. And as I said, right now, I don't think they're there quite yet, but very easily, I could see them moving past it by the end of the season. Steven Adams at 16 is also worth talking about here because based off 2020, he was a top 10 center. However, last year with the Pelicans was rough, and it's hard to know just how much of that was Steven Adams' fault and how much of it was the Pelicans' fault because obviously team synergy wasn't the best. When you have Zion Williamson and Steven Adams together, the spacing isn't going to be great. They also didn't have a very good pick and roll ball handler, and he had playmakers like Lonzo Ball, but Lonzo Ball himself is not a great scoring threat, especially going down towards the basket, so that pick and roll duo was never going to be as deadly as Russell Westbrook with Steven Adams. Plus, Stan Van Gundy's offense was notoriously poorly designed, and I'm just not going to put the blame on Steven Adams because I'm pretty sure he's still good at what he's good at, right? He's good at setting some of the best screens in the league. He's a great finisher, great rim protector. He's not bad at those things now. It's just the Pelicans last year were a hot mess, and that's why he's not number 16 for me, but I think deep down, he's as good as the 11th or 12th center still. It's just he didn't play well last year, which is why I'm putting him number 16. And like I said, because you can argue that guys like Robert Williams and Chris Boucher are more talented than, say, Jusuf Nurkic or Brook Lopez, they're still going to be the same tier. It's just right now, me personally, I would rather have the more steady, consistent presence of Brook Lopez or Steven Adams, for instance, because I know I can play them 30 minutes a night against 90% of NBA teams with no problems. Moving on though, next tier, number 13, Jared Allen, number 12, Miles Turner, number 11, Jonas Valanciunas, number 10, Kristaps Porzingis. And this is where the list gets messy because now we're talking about controversial players. And by the way, I know Porzingis is the power forward. I kind of forgot to put him on that list, which is why he's here, so don't really worry about that. I think I'll still be talking about him for sure. Number 13 though, Jared Allen, has a little carrot next to his name because he has a ton of defensive upside, and offensively, he could be a run and jump center that can average, 13, 14 points a game. Maybe still has some ball handling potential left to him as well. I don't know personally, but Cavs fans say he does, so maybe he does. 12 is Miles Turner, and according to NBA 2K21, he's like the 31st ranked center, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, I'm pretty sure they have Bobby Portis ranked better than Miles Turner, which is just not true. Miles Turner is an elite defensive center who, while he does struggle against Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic, these very big, strong, bruising centers, he is excellent against guards and just overall protecting the basket, right? He would make an all-defensive team if there were more centers for that position. Number 11 is Jonas Valanciunas, who had a very underrated season last year where, for the majority of the season actually, he was the best player on the Grizzlies team. I know Ja Morant took over in the playoffs because he's still better than Valanciunas, of course. It's just, for the regular season, when Ja was injured, Jonas Valanciunas was averaging like 17 and 11, and he really put the Grizzlies on his back. He's one of the best screen setters in the entire league, also one of the best and most efficient finishers in the entire league as well. The three-point shot is also coming along slowly. I doubt it'll be like a major part of his game, but he can make it if he's open. Now, Porzingis at number 10 is going to be a lot higher than what a lot of people would like. And believe me, I understand, he had a terrible postseason, and you should definitely criticize him and blame him for it. However, at his very best, Porzingis is arguably a top 5 center on this list, and I know he's a power forward, whatever. Like I said, I forgot to put him on that list. You have this guy who's 7'4" and can shoot 3-pointers like that. He's impossible to contest, right? At his very best, him and Luka are an unstoppable duo because now he's making he's shooting 8 to 9 3-pointers from outside. You can't really guard him. It's just pretty much dependent on if he's going to make it or miss it, no matter who you put on him, right? Defensively, he's an awesome rim protector because of his size and his height and his length, and he can really shut down the paint area completely. However, problems are obviously he's very inconsistent. And part of that is because his game is so jumper reliant, right? Because he's kind of skinny, he doesn't really bang around in the paint like other centers because at his height, with his size, he gets hurt a lot more easily if he's doing that, right? So he likes to take these little fall-away jumpers from 12 feet out, right? Which are, to be honest, kind of inefficient and not the best basketball shot. But like I said, when he's hot and he's making it, he's unguardable because you can't really contest him at that size. But because he's always taking those tough shots, his shooting percentages are always going to be very inconsistent and very inefficient. Well, not very inefficient, sorry. I didn't mean that, but somewhat inefficient considering his size, right? Especially a 2-point percentage. But that's pretty much the reason why I still have him number 10, because I think his upside, and when Porzingis is playing at his best, which he has done for extended periods of time before, right? With the Mavs back in 2020, he was that guy averaging 25 and 10 for a while there. Christian Wood is supremely talented. He can definitely average 26, 27 points per game in the NBA, right? With his size, his athleticism, and his possibly shooting ability as well. However, I definitely personally need to see a full season of him actually playing healthy and being out there for 82 games. Number 8, DeAndre Ayton, who he's very tough to rank once again because I think during the postseason, he showed that he could be a top 5 center in the league, right? Defensively, he made a huge improvement this year compared to last year. I actually made a video a while back talking about how he's the most underrated player in the NBA right now. Offensively, when he's being aggressive and actually trying to go towards the basket and score, and he's going into defenders and dunking over people, he's averaging 17, 18 points per game bare minimum because of his size and his strength. Problem is, sometimes he's just still way too passive, and you saw that in the playoffs where against the Clippers, game 1 I think, right? Maybe game 2, I forgot. DeAndre Ayton was dominant. He was crashing the glass, he was finishing everything within the basket, but in other games, especially against the Bucks, he wasn't. He was being passive, he was scared of Giannis and Brook Lopez, and he wasn't going towards the basket and being aggressive and rolling towards the basket at full effort. I talked about how Porzingis likes to fade away from the hoop because he has that length, and because he's not very strong and he's kind of skinny, banging around in the basket is bad for his body, right? That's not the case with DeAndre Ayton. The guy is massive too, like Porzingis, but he doesn't have the insane length of Porzingis, but he is an extremely strong player, right? One of the strongest players in the league. And yet, even against guys who are smaller than him, he's still fading away. He's still spinning away. He's not going directly towards the hoop. Number 7, Clint Capella, who I honestly just really admire because based off talent, he's not a top 7 center. However, because of his effort and how much he just tries to, crash the glass, and he's just relentless in terms of finishing around the basket and just never giving up, he's still a top 7 center for me because he just produces no matter what. Clint Capella is who Andre Drummond should be, but because Andre Drummond doesn't want to be Clint Capella and Andre Drummond wants to be Joel Embiid, that's why Capella's number 7 and Drummond's like number 28, 27. Number 6, Nikola Vucevic, who's one of the most talented offensive players in the entire league, and just based off that alone, he's number 6. It's just defensively, he's never been a positive defensive impact, and that's why he's still in the same tier as guys like Clint Capella and DeAndre Ayton or Christian Wood, because he's just not going to make an impact for you at defense, at center, which is the most important defensive position in the entire league. Rudy Gobert is a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, and for some reason, people think that Rudy Gobert doesn't deserve his depoys, which is, frankly, ridiculous. Yeah, he did struggle in the playoffs, but it's a regular season award, and statistically and just by the eye test, Rudy Gobert has been one of the best, he has been the best defensive center in the league for the last 6-7 seasons. And look, I know Reggie Jackson basically punked Rudy Gobert in the playoffs, and I admit it was pretty funny just seeing him just go up against him time and time again in Rudy Gobert's own home turf, right, the basket. But I guarantee you, that was an anomaly. And Rudy Gobert is the only center in the league who pretty much intimidates players away from even attempting a basket around the hoop. They see Gobert in the paint and they don't even shoot, right? That's why Gobert doesn't even average as many blocks per game as he used to, because players don't even shoot the ball now when he's close to the hoop. And believe me, I understand Rudy Gobert struggles on the perimeter. I was very vocal on my criticism of him during the playoffs because of that. However, the Jazz perimeter defenders did him a severe disservice this postseason as well. Donovan Mitchell, Mike Conley, they were just letting anybody get to the basket without basically any effort. There's a reason why Reggie Jackson and Terrence Mann just kept getting towards the hoop over and over again, because Conley and Mitchell, they couldn't stop him from doing that. And if you do that on pretty much 90% of NBA players, it's hard for someone to contest a basket like that. And sure, you can still blame Rudy Gobert for that because that's still his responsibility. I'm just saying it's not all on him, because you can't single-handedly just guard everybody when Mitchell and Conley are pretty much just not playing defense at that point. And I know Conley had a hurt hamstring, and I know Donovan Mitchell was on an ankle too, so I'm not exactly saying, oh yeah, it's all Mitchell and Conley's fault. I'm just pointing out that Gobert was also not placed in the best position to succeed during that postseason run. Number 4 is Bam Adebayo, who in a sense is kind of an opposite to Rudy Gobert. Not because Bam Adebayo is, good on offense and bad on defense, but, well, Gobert isn't bad on offense either. Forget about that. But while Rudy Gobert struggles on the perimeter and he can't switch onto other players, Bam Adebayo, for instance, that's pretty much the name of the game for him, right? He's made a living because he's super switchable, and yet he can protect the paint. Offensively, his game continues to grow. I think last year he averaged close to 20 points a game, maybe even more actually. I'll have to check the stats myself, but if his jumper continues to progress, he could be averaging 23, 24 points per game last year, because we saw Bam last year make a ton of 12, 14 footers off the dribble over other centers, and that was very interesting because in those plays, he looked like a wing rather than the center. Adebayo did kind of crap the bed in the playoffs though this year, especially against the Bucks. He was getting pretty much nothing going for him in the basket. Brook Lopez looked like Hakeem Olajuwon against Bam Adebayo. I don't know what was going on there. I think part of it is Bam Adebayo is undersized for center. He's like 6'8", 6'9", so scoring over someone like Lopez is kind of an issue for him, especially if the outside game isn't really working for him as well. So that's why he is number 4 for me and in that tier with Gobert. Number 3 though, Karl-Anthony Towns, and believe me, I am one of the biggest Karl-Anthony Towns fans on this planet. I love this guy. However, I just can't in good faith put him in the same tier as Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic when those two players have such a good pedigree of winning and success and just being MVP level players, whereas Karl-Anthony Towns, I do think talent-wise, he's close to being on a level. He just hasn't been able to show it because 1, injuries, 2, Timberwolves, they've always kind of sucked. Offensively, I believe Cat can be the best offensive player on a 50-win team. maybe on a championship team, but I do think at least he could be one on a very good playoffs team. He's shooting like what, 6-7 threes a game on 40% from three? That's crazy. And when the Wolves switched coaches last year from Ryan Saunders to Chris Finch, we did see Karl-Anthony Towns bring the ball up the court more. And that was very interesting because I think that's responsible for guys like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid pretty much exploding in points per game production, because now you're putting the ball in their hands more often. So instead of just like waiting for a post up and getting the ball down low, they're actually bringing the ball up themselves. And that's interesting because I think Karl-Anthony Towns, skill-wise, from the perimeter, is definitely as good as Jokic or Embiid, especially the shooting at the very least. Defensively, he does struggle, yes, but I think he has gotten better throughout his career, and it's just offensively, I think the upside is just amazing and through the roof with Karl-Anthony Towns. My final two tiers, number 2, Joel Embiid, number 1, Nikola Jokic. And I understand that Jokic versus Embiid has been a debate for the last 3 seasons, right? And it's a good one. It's just time and time again, Nikola Jokic has proven he's better. He produces more consistently. He's on the court more consistently. He shows up in the playoffs more consistently. I think the debate here, in my opinion, isn't whether or not Embiid is better than Jokic, because I don't think in good faith you can argue that, considering the fact that Jokic, the last 3-4 seasons, has consistently outperformed Joel Embiid in the regular season and in the postseason. The question is, are they in the same tier? And in my opinion, it's no. While I do think Embiid is talented enough to be in a tier, he was an MVP candidate for the majority of the season until he got injured. Just like I said, Jokic, time and time again, has been an elite playoffs performer, whereas with Embiid, he's injured a lot of times. But availability is a skill, and if Embiid is going to be playing in the postseason hurt every single season, you have to take that into account. And Joel Embiid, he should be better than Nikola Jokic. He's more athletic, he's better defensively. Offensively, he's pretty much just as talented, it's just he's not. He's too inconsistent. Nikola Jokic is one of the most reliable and consistently elite players in the entire league, and that's why I have him in a whole different tier from Embiid. Obviously, I'm being very negative about Embiid here, but he's number 2 for a reason, and he's above Anthony Towns, Bam Adebayo, and Gobert in his own tier for a reason too. He's a borderline top 10 player who, at times during the season, was a top 5 player almost. It's just like I said, because of the injuries, and even when he is healthy, does have those ugly games where he's missing a ton of like 10-footers, where that's also a thing with Embiid too, where he's this huge guy, but he loves to settle for these, tough 8-9 footers fading away from players. And because he's still very, very talented and very elite, he still makes those shots at a very high percentage, of course. And that's why he's still elite offensively. It's just, I do kind of want to see Embiid, I guess, bang around in the paint more often, because you have this guy with incredible footwork, incredible size and skill. You want him to see him just do some more classic big man post-up things. But I don't know, he just doesn't do it as often as he used to. But yeah, that's it on my video. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys about that. Obviously, I couldn't go over like one by one every single player like Mason Plumlee or Rashawn Holmes, but if you want to talk about those, I'd love to do that in the comments below.